Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be the one posting here. Reading stories on this subreddit used to be my guilty pleasure. Never did I imagine I'd have my own tale to tell. My name is Chris, 34M, and my wife, Megan, 33F, and I have been married for 8 years. We have one child, Ellie, 6F, and up until recently, I thought we were your typical suburban family. But last month, everything fell apart when I discovered Megan's double life. I don't even know where to start. Megan has always been ambitious. She worked her way up the corporate ladder in marketing and landed a job at a major firm about a year ago. The job came with a lot of perks, a higher salary, better benefits, but it also came with frequent travel. At first, I didn't think much of it. Business trips are part of the deal in her line of work, and I trusted her completely. But over the past few months, things started feeling off. It started with the little things. Megan would get texts late at night and tilt her phone away when I was nearby. She claimed it was her boss or a coworker discussing last-minute project changes, but something about her explanations felt rehearsed. She'd also been spending more time at the gym, suddenly more concerned about her appearance than she had been in years. Again, I didn't think too much of it at first. People evolve, right? Maybe she was just trying to stay fit after sitting at a desk all day. But then there were the work trips. They started becoming more frequent and longer. A 3-day conference would turn into a 5-day event. When I'd ask her about it, she'd say things like, "Oh, we added a team-building retreat at the last minute," or, "I had to meet with a client in a nearby city." I wanted to believe her, so I let it go. Then came the odd expenses. Megan has her own credit card for work expenses, but occasionally, I'd spot charges on our shared account that didn't make sense, restaurant bills for 2, hotel upgrades, and even a charge for a spa package. When I brought it up, she'd wave it off as reimbursable work expenses or claim it was for networking with clients. Clients? I remember saying, "You're going to a spa with clients now?" She laughed it off and said, it was part of a package deal for the team. Relax, Chris, it's not what you think. I wanted to believe her, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. The tipping point came last month. Megan told me she had a 3-day work trip to Chicago for a conference. As usual, she left in a flurry, packing her suitcase, kissing Ellie goodbye, and giving me a quick peck on the cheek before heading out the door. I watched her drive away, and for the first time, I felt a gnawing sense of unease I couldn't shake. I decided to check the conference's website to see what it was about, mostly out of curiosity, but partly because I wanted to reassure myself. When I looked it up, I found out something odd. The conference was being held in Milwaukee, not Chicago. And it was only a 1-day event, not a 3-day one. My heart sank. Why would Megan lie about something so easily verifiable? I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she had meetings in Chicago afterward. Maybe I misunderstood. But the more I thought about it, the more suspicious I became. I decided I couldn't ignore the red flags anymore. I needed answers. Megan had left her itinerary on the kitchen counter, as she always did. It listed her hotel, the conference venue, and her flight times. I stared at the piece of paper for hours, debating whether I was about to cross a line. Was I being paranoid? Was I invading her privacy? Or was I finally waking up to the truth? In the end, I booked a last-minute flight to Chicago. My plan was simple. I'd follow Megan discreetly, see where she went, and get the answers I needed. If I was wrong, I'd never bring it up. But if I was right, I didn't even want to think about what that would mean. I told my boss I needed a few days off for a personal emergency and arranged for my mom to watch Ellie. I packed a small bag, grabbed Megan's itinerary, and headed to the airport. My hands were shaking the entire time. Part of me hoped I wouldn't find anything. Another part of me knew I was about to uncover something that would change my life forever. When I landed in Chicago, I went straight to the hotel listed on Megan's itinerary. I didn't check in. I didn't want to risk her spotting me, so I hung out in the lobby, pretending to scroll through my phone while keeping an eye on the entrance. Hours passed, and there was no sign of Megan. I started to wonder if I'd made a mistake, but then I saw her. She walked into the lobby wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, looking more glamorous than she ever did for work. And she wasn't alone. A man, tall, well-dressed, mid-40s, was walking beside her, his hand casually resting on the small of her back. They were laughing, completely oblivious to the world around them. Oblivious to me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I wanted to storm over and confront her right then and there, but I stopped myself. I needed more information. I needed proof. Watching Megan walk into that hotel lobby with another man felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to confront her, to demand answers, to ask her how she could do this to me and our daughter. But I held back. I told myself I needed more than just a single sighting. I needed undeniable proof, because once I confronted her, there would be no going back. After Megan and the man entered the hotel, I waited a few minutes before following them in. The lobby was bustling with guests, and I did my best to blend in, keeping my head down and pretending to check my phone. I scanned the room, but Megan and the man were nowhere to be seen. My heart sank as I realized they'd probably gone up to one of the rooms. I walked over to the front desk, trying to appear casual. "Excuse me," I said to the receptionist. "I'm supposed to meet my wife here, but I forgot her room number. Could you help me out?" "Her name's Megan Carter." The receptionist glanced at her computer. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't give out guest information." I nodded, pretending to understand, but inside I was seething. I walked away, unsure of my next move. I couldn't just sit in the lobby all night, but I also couldn't leave without figuring out what was going on. I didn't have to wait long. About an hour later, Megan and the man came back down to the lobby, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. She had changed into another outfit, something even more formal, and he was now holding her hand. My stomach churned as I watched them walk out of the hotel and into the night. I followed them at a distance, careful not to get too close. They hailed a cab, and I quickly flagged down another one, telling the driver to follow them. I felt ridiculous, like I was in some cheap soap opera, but I didn't care. I needed to know where they were going. The cab stopped in front of an upscale restaurant, the kind of place Megan and I never went to because it was too expensive. I stayed back, watching as they walked inside, still holding hands. The way she looked at him, the way she used to look at me, made my blood boil. I knew I couldn't follow them into the restaurant without being spotted, so I stayed outside, pacing the sidewalk and trying to think. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few pictures of them through the restaurant window. It felt gross and invasive, but I told myself it was necessary. If Megan tried to deny anything later, I'd have proof. After about an hour, they came back out, laughing and leaning into each other like they didn't have a care in the world. I followed them again as they got into another cab, which took them to a nearby bar. At this point, I wasn't even surprised anymore. I felt numb, like I was watching someone else's life unravel instead of my own. The bar was packed, which worked in my favor. I slipped inside unnoticed and found a spot at the far end of the room where I could keep an eye on them. They were sitting in a booth, heads close together, talking and laughing. At one point, the man reached across the table and took her hand, rubbing his thumb over her palm. She didn't pull away. I ordered a drink I didn't even want and watched as they finished their cocktails. My mind was racing, trying to process everything I was seeing. Who was this guy? How long had this been going on? And how could Megan do this to me, to Ellie? When they left the bar, I followed them back to the hotel. This time, I didn't hesitate. I waited a few minutes after they went inside, then walked up to the front desk again. "I need to speak to the manager," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. The manager came out, and I explained that I suspected my wife was having an affair and that she was currently upstairs with another man. "I don't want to cause a scene," I said, "but I need to know the truth." The manager hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, we have a strict policy about guest privacy." "Please," I interrupted, my voice breaking. "I'm not asking for her room number or any personal information. I just need to know if she's here with him. That's all." After what felt like an eternity, the manager finally nodded. "She checked in with a man earlier today," he admitted. "I'm sorry, but that's all I can tell you." Hearing those words felt like a knife to the chest. I thanked the manager and walked out of the hotel, my mind racing. I had my proof. I had my answers. But now I had no idea what to do with them. Should I confront Megan now, while she was still with him? Should I wait until she got home and hit her with everything I'd found? Should I tell her family? My family? My head was spinning, and I felt completely lost. I ended up walking around the city for hours, trying to clear my head. When I finally went back to my hotel, I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was the life we'd built together, the promises we'd made, and how easily she'd thrown it all away. After spending a sleepless night in my hotel room, I realized I couldn't wait until Megan came home to confront her. The idea of her continuing this charade, walking into our house like nothing had happened, made me sick. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I waited until the next morning before making my move. I'd seen Megan and her lover head back to the hotel late the previous night, and I assumed they'd stay there until checkout. My heart was pounding as I approached the front desk again, this time with a clear plan. I told the receptionist I needed to leave a package for Megan Carter, which they assured me they'd deliver to her room. The package was a handwritten note. It wasn't long, but it said everything I needed to say in that moment. Megan, I know everything. Come down to the lobby if you want to talk. Chris. I wasn't sure if she'd even come down, but I had to try. I sat in the far corner of the lobby, nursing a cup of coffee I didn't want and waiting for what felt like an eternity. Finally, about 20 minutes later, I saw her step out of the elevator. Megan looked disheveled, like she'd thrown on the first thing she could find. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with panic as she scanned the room and spotted me. For a moment, she froze, clearly debating whether to approach me or turn around and run back upstairs. But eventually, she took a deep breath and walked over to where I was sitting. Chris, she said quietly, her voice shaking. What are you doing here? I looked her straight in the eye. You tell me, I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. You're supposed to be at a work conference in Chicago. Instead, you're here with another man. So, Megan, you tell me, what am I doing here? She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Her hands were trembling, and I could see the guilt written all over her face. I can explain, she said finally, sitting down across from me. It's not what you think. It's not what I think. I repeated, raising an eyebrow. Megan, I saw you with him. I followed you to the restaurant, to the bar, and back here. I talked to the manager. So please, enlighten me. What exactly is this if not what I think? She started crying, which I had to remind myself not to feel sorry for. It's complicated, she said. He's someone I met at work. We've been spending time together, but it's not serious. I swear. Chris, it didn't mean anything. Not serious? I said, my voice rising. You're holding hands, having dinner, sharing a hotel room, and you're telling me it's not serious? Megan, do you even hear yourself? At this point, I couldn't hold back my anger anymore. You lied to me, I said, my voice shaking. You lied to Ellie. You told us you were going on a work trip, and instead, you're here with him. Do you have any idea how much you've hurt me? How much you've hurt our family? She was sobbing now, her head in her hands. I'm sorry, she said over and over. I'm so sorry, Chris. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I didn't mean to hurt you. But her apologies felt hollow. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the lies, the deception, and the complete disregard for everything we'd built together. I couldn't even look at her. I can't do this right now, I said, standing up. When you get back, we're going to have a real conversation about this. But for now, you can stay here with him. I'm going home. She tried to stop me, grabbing my arm as I turned to leave. Chris, please, she said. Don't go like this. Let me explain. But I didn't stop. I walked out of the hotel, got into a cab, and headed straight to the airport. I couldn't be in that city for another second. When I got back home, the first thing I did was hug Ellie tighter than I ever had before. She was too young to understand what was going on, but her smile and innocent questions about where I'd been nearly broke me. How was I supposed to explain to her that her mom wasn't the person we thought she was? How was I supposed to shield her from the fallout? For the next 2 days, I tried to act normal for Ellie's sake. I took her to school, played with her in the backyard, and read her favorite bedtime stories. But inside, I was a mess. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt a wave of anxiety, knowing it was probably Megan trying to reach me. I ignored her texts and calls, needing time to process everything before I could face her again. Megan returned a few days later, looking exhausted and tearful. I didn't greet her at the door. I was in the living room, waiting for her to explain herself. She sat down on the couch across from me, and for a moment, we just stared at each other in silence. Chris, she said softly, I'm so sorry. I know I've hurt you, and I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Start by telling me the truth, I said. No more half-truths, no more lies. I need to know everything, Megan. How long has this been going on? She hesitated, her eyes filling with tears again. About 6 months, she admitted. It started as just talking. I didn't mean for it to turn into anything more, but it did. I finished for her. You didn't mean for it to, but it did. And instead of stopping, instead of coming to me, you chose to keep going. You chose to lie to me, to Ellie, to everyone. She nodded, unable to argue. I know, she said. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to try to make things right. Please, Chris, give me a chance. I wish I could tell you I had a clear answer in that moment, but I didn't. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to tell her to pack her bags and leave. Another part of me thought about Ellie and wondered if walking away would only make things harder for her. I need time, I said finally. I need time to figure out if I can even do this. You've broken my trust, Megan, and I don't know if that's something we can ever get back. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Take all the time you need, she said. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm sorry. For now, I'm staying in the house for Ellie's sake, but I'm not sure where we go from here. I've started looking into therapy, both for myself and for us as a couple, but I don't know if it'll be enough. The truth is, I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at Megan the same way again. The last few days have been some of the most emotionally draining of my life. Since Megan came home and admitted the full extent of her affair, I've been grappling with one question. Can I ever forgive her? And honestly, I'm not sure I know the answer. Part of me wants to try for Ellie's sake, but another part of me wonders if some betrayals are just too big to come back from. After some research, I found a therapist who specializes in couples dealing with infidelity. Megan and I had our first session yesterday, and it was intense. The therapist, Dr. Lawson, started by asking us both why we were there and what we wanted to get out of therapy. Megan went first. I'm here because I made a terrible mistake, she said, her voice trembling. I hurt Chris in a way I never thought I could, and I want to do everything I can to make it right. I know I don't deserve his forgiveness, but I want to prove to him that I'm committed to fixing this. When it was my turn, I hesitated. I'm here because I don't know if I can forgive her, I admitted. She broke my trust, and I feel like I don't even know who she is anymore. But I love our daughter, and I owe it to her to at least try to figure out if this marriage is salvageable. Dr. Lawson nodded and told us that healing from infidelity is a long and difficult process. It's not just about forgiveness, she said. It's about rebuilding trust, addressing the root causes of the betrayal, and deciding if you can create a new version of your relationship moving forward. Her words gave me a lot to think about, but they also left me feeling overwhelmed. Could I really build something new with Megan after what she did? Since coming home, Megan has been trying hard to show me that she's serious about making things right. She's been transparent about her schedule, letting me know where she is at all times, and sharing her phone and email passwords. She also blocked Jake on everything, his number, social media, even LinkedIn, and promised she'd never contact him again. But even with all her efforts, the trust just isn't there. Every time she picks up her phone, my mind immediately goes to dark places. Is she texting someone else? Is she hiding something from me again? I know it's not fair to assume the worst, but after months of lies, it's hard not to. One night, after Ellie went to bed, Megan sat me down and said, Chris, I know I can't undo what I did, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm not that person anymore. I'll go to therapy on my own. I'll take a lie detector test if you want. Just tell me what you need. Her words sounded sincere, but they also felt desperate. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part of me couldn't shake the memory of her walking into that hotel lobby with Jake, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. One of the hardest things about this situation is the constant paranoia. Even though Megan has been open and transparent since coming home, I can't stop questioning everything. Every time she leaves the house, I wonder if she's really going where she says she is. Every time she gets a text, I feel a pang of anxiety, even though she's let me look at her messages whenever I ask. Dr. Lawson says this paranoia is normal in the aftermath of infidelity. It's your brain's way of trying to protect you from being hurt again, she explained during our second session. But if you want to move forward, you'll need to work on separating the past from the present. That's easier said than done. Right now, it feels like the past is all I can think about. Ellie is the reason I haven't packed my bags and walked out the door. She's too young to understand what's going on, and I can't stand the thought of her life being torn apart because of this. Megan has been a good mom, and I know she loves Ellie more than anything. But I also know that staying in a broken marriage isn't healthy for anyone, especially Ellie. One night, after Ellie went to bed, I broke down and told Megan how conflicted I was. I don't want to do this to her, I said, tears streaming down my face. I don't want her to grow up in a broken home. But I also don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. Megan started crying too. I know I messed up, she said. But I don't want to lose our family, Chris. Please, just give me a chance to prove that I can be better for you, for Ellie, for all of us. I wish I could say I've found clarity, but the truth is, I haven't. Some days, I feel like there's a glimmer of hope, like maybe we can work through this and come out stronger on the other side. Other days, I feel like I'm wasting my time trying to rebuild something that's already broken beyond repair. One thing I've realized is that forgiveness isn't something that happens overnight. It's a process, and it's not linear. Some days, I feel like I'm making progress. Other days, the anger and betrayal hit me all over again, and it feels like I'm back at square one. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm continuing therapy, both on my own and with Megan, and I'm trying to focus on being the best dad I can be for Ellie. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm determined to find peace, whether that's with Megan or without her. After weeks of therapy, late-night conversations, and endless soul-searching, I feel like I'm finally starting to get a sense of what rebuilding might look like. But let me be clear, it's not easy. It's not romantic or hopeful like in the movies. It's messy, painful, and full of doubt. Some days, I feel like we're making progress. Other days, I wonder if I'm just delaying the inevitable. But for now, I'm still here, trying to figure out if forgiveness and trust are even possible. Our sessions with Dr. Lawson have been both helpful and incredibly uncomfortable. Last week, she asked us to identify the root causes of the affair, not as a way to excuse Megan's actions, but to understand how we got to this point. Megan admitted that she'd been feeling lonely and unappreciated. "Chris, you're an amazing dad and a hard worker," she said during the session. "But somewhere along the way, I felt like we stopped being partners. It felt like you were focused on Ellie and your job, and I was just there." Her words stung, but I knew there was some truth to them. I had been pouring most of my energy into work and parenting, assuming that Megan was fine because she never said otherwise. But as much as I could acknowledge my own shortcomings, I still couldn't understand how her solution was to cheat instead of talking to me. "You should have come to me," I said, my voice breaking. "If you felt lonely, if you felt like I wasn't giving you what you needed, why didn't you tell me? Why did you turn to him instead of your husband?" Megan looked down, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I think I was scared. Scared you wouldn't listen, or that things wouldn't change. And Jake, he made me feel seen. It was wrong, and I hate myself for it, but that's the truth." Hearing her say that hurt more than I can put into words, but at least it was honest. For the first time, I felt like we were finally addressing the underlying issues instead of just skimming the surface. The hardest part of this entire process has been dealing with the shattered trust. No matter how many times Megan apologizes or how transparent she tries to be, I can't seem to shake the paranoia. Every time she leaves the house or picks up her phone, my mind spirals into worst-case scenarios. It's exhausting, and it's making me question whether rebuilding is even possible. Dr. Lawson told us that trust isn't something that can be rebuilt quickly. It's earned over time, she said, through consistent actions, open communication, and patience. But it also requires a choice on your part, Chris. You have to decide whether you're willing to take that risk again. That's the thing, though. I don't know if I am. The thought of going through this again, of putting myself in a vulnerable position only to be hurt, is terrifying. I don't know if I have it in me. To her credit, Megan has been trying. She's been attending therapy on her own, journaling, and doing everything Dr. Lawson recommends to rebuild trust. She's also gone out of her way to show me that she's committed to change. She planned a surprise date night last weekend, nothing fancy, just dinner at our favorite restaurant. But it was the first time in months that we'd spent quality time together without the weight of everything hanging over us. "I know this doesn't fix anything," she said during dinner, "but I want you to know that I'm trying. I love you, Chris, and I'm not giving up on us." Her words were sincere, but they also made me realize something. I don't know if I love her the same way anymore. I care about her, and I want her to be happy. But the love we had, the trust, the partnership, it feels like it's gone. And I don't know if it's something we can ever get back. Ellie has been the one bright spot in all of this. She has no idea what's going on, which is both a blessing and a source of guilt. Megan and I have agreed not to argue or discuss the affair in front of her, but I can't help wondering if she senses the tension between us. She's been extra clingy lately, always wanting to sit between us on the couch or hold both of our hands when we're out. It breaks my heart to think about how all of this might affect her in the long run. Megan has been an amazing mom through all of this, which only adds to my confusion. She's patient, loving, and completely devoted to Ellie. Part of me wonders if that's reason enough to try to make this work, for Ellie's sake. But then I think about what kind of example I'd be setting if I stayed in a marriage where I couldn't fully trust or love my partner. Last night, Megan and I had another long talk after Ellie went to bed. "Chris," she said, I know I've hurt you more than I can ever make up for. But I want you to know that I'm not just doing this for you or Ellie. I'm doing it for me, too. I need to be better. I need to be someone I'm proud of again. Her words caught me off guard. For the first time, it felt like she wasn't just saying what I wanted to hear. She was genuinely trying to change. It didn't erase the pain or rebuild the trust, but it made me think that maybe, just maybe, there's a path forward for us. As I write this, I still don't have all the answers. Some days, I feel like we're making progress. Other days, I feel like the wounds are too deep to heal. But for now, I'm choosing to stay and see where this journey takes us. I'm not committing to forever. I'm committing to trying. And maybe that's enough for now. After spending weeks in therapy and countless hours thinking about the future, I've been forced to confront the one thing I've been avoiding: forgiveness. Can I forgive Megan for what she did? And if I can, what does forgiveness even look like? To be honest, I don't have all the answers, but here's where I'm at right now. One thing I've learned in therapy is that forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about letting go of the anger and resentment so I can heal, whether Megan and I stay together or not. Dr. Lawson has been pushing me to think about forgiveness as a gift I give myself, not just Megan. Forgiveness doesn't mean you'll forget what happened, she said in one session. It doesn't mean you'll never feel pain or anger again. It means choosing to stop letting the betrayal control your life. Her words made sense, but they were hard to put into practice. How do I let go of something that's completely upended my world? How do I forgive someone who broke my trust in the worst way possible? And even if I can, is forgiveness enough to rebuild what we had? Megan has been doing everything she can to show me she's serious about change. She's been going to therapy twice a week, journaling about her feelings, and working on the issues that led to her affair. She's also been incredibly patient with me, answering my questions, even the uncomfortable ones, and giving me the space I need to process everything. Last weekend, she handed me a letter she'd written. It wasn't long, but it was raw and honest. She apologized again for her actions and acknowledged the pain she'd caused. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she wrote, "but I want you to know how deeply sorry I am. I hate what I did, and I hate the person I became. I'm trying to be better for you, for Ellie, and for myself." Reading her words made me emotional, but it also left me conflicted. I could see how hard she was trying, but I still wasn't sure if it was enough. One of the biggest barriers to forgiveness is fear. I'm terrified of putting myself in a vulnerable position again, only to be hurt. What if Megan slips back into old habits? What if I let my guard down, only to find out she's been lying to me all over again? The thought of going through this pain a second time is almost unbearable. Dr. Lawson says this fear is normal and that rebuilding trust takes time. It's okay to feel conflicted, she said during one session. Forgiveness and trust aren't the same thing. You can choose to forgive without fully trusting her yet. Trust comes later, through consistent actions over time. That distinction has helped me, but it hasn't erased my doubts. I still don't know if I'll ever be able to trust Megan the way I used to. One thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is the impact this situation will have on Ellie. She's still too young to understand what's happening, but I know she senses the tension between Megan and me. She's been asking more questions lately. Why I've been sleeping on the couch, why Mommy's been crying so much, and it breaks my heart. Megan and I have tried to shield her from the worst of it, but I know we can't protect her from everything. At some point, she'll realize that things aren't normal, and I don't want her to grow up in a home filled with resentment and mistrust. But I also don't want her to think it's okay to stay in a broken relationship just for the sake of appearances. This has been weighing on me heavily. How do I balance doing what's best for Ellie with doing what's best for myself? Can I be the father she deserves while also prioritizing my own happiness? These are the questions that keep me up at night. Despite everything, there have been small moments that give me hope. Like the other night, when Megan and I stayed up late talking about our dreams for the future, something we hadn't done in years. Or the time she surprised me by planning a family outing to the park, where we spent the day laughing and playing with Ellie. These moments don't erase the pain, but they remind me of the good things we've built together. They make me think that maybe, just maybe, there's a path forward for us. After months of therapy, soul-searching, and difficult conversations, I've finally made a decision about what comes next. It hasn't been easy, but here's where I've landed. I've decided to stay for now. I'm not making any promises about the future, but I'm willing to give Megan a chance to prove that she's truly committed to change. I've told her that rebuilding trust will take time, and that I'll need to see consistent effort from her before I can even consider fully forgiving her. She's agreed to keep going to therapy and to continue being transparent about her actions, which is a start. But I've also made it clear that this is her last chance. If she lies to me again or gives me any reason to doubt her, I'm done. I won't put myself or Ellie through this pain again. For now, I'm focusing on taking things one day at a time. I'm continuing therapy on my own, working on processing my emotions and figuring out what I want from life. I've also been spending as much time as possible with Ellie, making sure she knows how much she's loved and supported. Megan and I still have a long way to go, and I don't know if we'll ever fully repair what's been broken. But I'm willing to try for myself, for Ellie, and maybe even for Megan. Whether we succeed or not, I know I'll come out of this stronger and more resilient than before. Oh, anyone reading this who's going through a similar situation, I want you to know that healing is possible. It's not easy, and it's not linear, but you can get through it, whether that means staying and rebuilding or walking away and starting fresh. The most important thing is to prioritize your own well-being and do what feels right for you. Thank you, Reddit, for being there through this journey. Your advice, support, and encouragement have meant more to me than I can put into words. Take care of yourselves, and remember, no matter how broken things feel, there's always hope for something new.